In this example we're going to be looking at the basic drawing tools and workspace of Flash CS6. Okay, to start off with, I've opened up Adobe Flash Professional CS6, which can be found in Adobe Master Collection in your program files. I'm going to create a new ActionScript 3.0 file, and then I'm going to move across to the Properties window panel and change the document size. So I'm going to set it to 1280 by 720, which is the frame size of 720p. Just scroll that into the middle. And there we go. Okay, so just a little over to the right is the toolbar. I actually prefer to pull it off and make it a little bit more visible over the stage. Okay, so currently we're looking at the stage. That's the white area, and the grey areas are outside of that are not visible usually unless you extend the window. So we just usually use the stage as the representation of the visible area of a Flash document. To the right we've got properties. This is contextual. It changes based on the tool you have to have selected, or based on the object you have selected on the stage. And then we have the library, which will give us a list of our different symbols and different images that we've imported, different audio files if we brought them in, different video files if we brought them in. Okay. To the bottom of the screen we have our timeline. There's a representation of each frame that's available, and then we have layers. So each layer can have its own independent animations. The rule of thumb is it's one animation object per layer, so you can wind up working with quite a lot of layers. These three other tabs are not as relevant, especially not compiler errors and output, which are more to do with application development. The motion editor allows you, when you've got an animation started, to change properties like the easing in and out, and also the motion path itself and other similar properties. Okay, and to the top we've got the file menu, as you'd expect. New, save, open, those kind of things. Import is used to import images, audio, video, etc. Edit, cut and paste, find and replace, those kind of things. View, usual kind of thing. Insert for new symbol, keyframes, things like that. Modify, you might use that a little bit later on. And if you lose any panels, then they're all in window. Also control, which is used to test a movie or even test a scene. It's best to work in scenes when you're working on larger projects. And if we have the scene panel available, you can just drag this across here, over next to the library, and then it will become part of those panels. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import some tracing graphics. File, import to library. This will open up the import dialog. It takes a few seconds sometimes. It won't take any longer every time that you use it after the first time. Okay, so pictures. I've got a couple of sketches that I'm going to bring in to use as tracing graphics, and then they appear in the library. I can select one and see a thumbnail of it. If I make that window bigger, you can see more of the thumbnail, or less if you make it smaller, obviously. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this one onto the stage. It'll be bigger than the stage, probably. It's a lower quality bitmap image, and then what I'll do is I'll come across here. I'll rename my layer tracing, because that's the layer that I'm used to trace with. I can right click and I can make that a guide, and then it will no longer appear when I test the movie. When you've finished, you want to delete all of your tracing layers, really, just for sake of simplicity. Okay, so then I'll create a new layer by clicking on the new layer icon, and I'll just call this man, and then on that layer I'm going to draw a basic representation of a man based on this trace. So I will use the pencil tool, which creates or can create shapes if I join it together, which can be filled. Look at fill. Delete that. Get rid of that bit. Or it can just create basic lines. And if the line doesn't join together, then similar to other bitmap programs, it will not fill. There are different ways of addressing that. You're usually picking up the endpoint and snapping it to another endpoint will work. And you see, so sometimes it's quite difficult to tell whether it's joined or not. You have to zoom quite heavily in to figure that out. Okay, because I'm drawing over a black line already, I'm going to change the colour of this to be a green line to start off with. I'm going to set it to smooth out my lines, and then I'll just try and trace around this object. And so you might find this a little bit easier using the graphics tablet. Okay, so that can be my head. I'll double click that and then convert it into a symbol. This is a bit like a container. It allows me to keep different elements of the body separate, which helps in terms of organisation and also in terms of animation, because I'll be able to animate every individual part of the body separately. So I'll convert to a symbol. I'll use the simplest type, which is a graphic, and I'll just call that head 1. Click OK for that, and then for the neck and the torso, I'll just approximate that. And make sure it overlaps the head sufficiently to allow for that to be moved. And I'll double click that line. It should become highlighted. Right click, let's symbol, call it torso 1. Okay. And scrolling down, I might just have an upper part of the leg. Like so. Same again. Leg 1. Okay. Draw my lower leg onto a point where the ankle would be. Okay. Maybe some perspective issues here, but for now this will do as an example. Symbol, lower leg. Okay. And then something representing the foot, which is a little bit different how I might have chosen to draw it. So just overlap there. Okay. Double click, convert symbol. Foot 1. Okay. And from there on, I can hide the tracing layer. I would obviously complete this by adding in arms, and then I'm going to highlight the whole thing. I'm going to group it together in what known as a movie clip symbol. So convert to symbol, movie clip. Well, this is a more complex type of container. Both containers have their own timelines, but this also allows you to communicate with it in ActionScript. It can be animated independently of the main timeline. Graphics can't be animated independently of the main timeline, and also you can add some pretty useful filters. So generally speaking, you would choose a graphic symbol for your constituent parts and a movie clip symbol for the overall object. So then I double click on that, and you'll notice that we're going to go from where it says scene 1, which is the main timeline, into the man symbol, and then I can double click on any of those constituent parts and animate them separately. They would need to be on different layers. First thing I'm going to do is change the colour of the outline. I'll use a dark outline to give a kind of cartoon feel in this case. I'll choose a skin tone, fleshy tone. Okay, and we find that it's not actually joined. So I'll have to inspect this more closely, but I suspect that it's around this bottom area here where I can see a slight overlap. And what I'll do is I'll just join across from one line to the other, and then I should be able to select the bits that are overhanging. I should now have a shape. I'll try and bucket fill it. There we go. Excellent. And then I would continue to do that for each part. So I double click to select the fill and the line. I'm going to go back to man, and I'm going to copy, or cut even, the head. Put that on a new layer, call that head. Right click on the stage and choose paste in place while that line is selected, and that will put it exactly where it was before. So the objective is to have individual layers for each constituent part, therefore we can animate them separately as movie clips, which will allow us to rotate them in space. Okay, and I'll just finish off the rest of this. Okay, now you'll see that I've created symbols from each part of the body, and each part of the body has got a separate layer. Obviously, to create a slightly better animation, I would have 2 legs, 2 arms, they would be on top of each other, so the one appeared to be behind the other. The next thing I would want to do is, when I'm animating them at least, is to transform point, which is free transform, and it's this circular point here, and I want to put that somewhere roughly around there for the ankle. There for the knee joint, although technically the knee's more like there, and put the hip up there. I may also put one in for the torso, I suppose, although in this example that would probably be unlikely to move much, and with the head I'd probably rotate around that point there. And so you see when I rotate now, it rotates around a point, as you probably prefer it to be at the top of the neck, and it should seem a little bit more natural. Obviously you can't bend your head backwards like that, but we can tilt it forward a little bit like this, to give a rudimentary kind of movements. So with the leg, you see there like that, and I can also cause this to then follow that, for example, put the foot in like this and pose it a little bit more like a puppet. Okay, and that'll be the end of that video. And the last part of that concept is that once we return to scene 1, we can move the overall body in the main timeline as so, and any animation that is contained within the movie clip itself would therefore translate. So we could, for instance, create a walk-in loop and then tween the body across the stage to give the impression of movement. in more dimensions than that movie clip would allow easily. And that would also give us the benefit of being able to bring in a sprite, as it were, that we could reuse anytime we wanted to have that pose. Okay, that'll be the end of this example.